When I look back at 2025, what stands out isn't a new technique or a breakthrough moment. It's a handful of realizations that completely changed how I think about watercolor commissions, juried shows, and time. And none of them were obvious going in. Today, I want to share 5 surprising truths I learned this year as a watercolor artist, starting with one that I genuinely did not expect. So, truth number 1, framing changes everything. I knew framing mattered, but it was only in 2025 when I decided to submit my artworks to juried shows and exhibitions and whatnot in Washington State, because I just moved from a country that I couldn't quite speak the language, and it was a chance to open up my art career. So this was pretty much the first time I was like, oh my God, I need to present my work to shows and whatnot. And what I didn't notice was how expensive it was, how many decisions it forces, and how much time it takes. No matter even if you create it by yourself or if you get it framed at a framer's. So framing is unavoidable for shows. There was one artist who was doing mixed media work, but mainly watercolor, and he would clip the papers with paper clips and then put it on a twine. But the thing is, a lot of shows would not accept that, so it has to be framed. So I did try a couple of things this year. I didn't have much time and I got in this show, so I went quickly to a framer's, which was lovely. They had tons of exciting framing options and I had fun selecting mine, although it was tight in time, so the selection got narrowed down. But it cost so much, and because I used specifically a color that would change with direct sunlight, I selected the museum quality glass that was non-glare UV protective glass. So it really cost a lot. It cost basically like $350, which was quite a lot, but I enjoyed the experience of it. So I'm not unhappy with the choice that I've made, but that was the first learning. And then next I went into placing my watercolor on cradled boards, like glue them on cradled boards, which went well. I don't have these pieces in my studio right now because they're in a show, but if you're in Washington State, please come by Columbia City Gallery. That's where I'm a co-op member, and there's a silent auction that's going on, and it's so fun because it's like art salon style and they'll be on the wall. But anyhow, so I went through that, but that means that there are ready-made cradled boards that are not so expensive. They're quite reasonable, but the problem comes that it might not necessarily fit the format of your painting. I find it quite difficult because I use arches and it doesn't quite fit the standard American inches size. So I was looking into getting it custom made, but I was like, it's not worth it. So I skipped it. And what I did for a show that was coming up and I had no time, I created this one. In my previous video where I said these are the things that I regret buying because I wasn't using it, and I placed into the hold box was one of the stretcher bars for specifically oil painting. Now, first of all, I varnished them with black spray, and then I put a sealant so it doesn't damage my work, thinking about archivalness of a work. And then, yeah, I got a backing board and I placed this watercolor on it, and then with soft gel gloss from Golden. And then what I did, thanks to Rachel, who works at the closest Michael's around in my neighborhood, she came up with a great idea. And what it was getting these, oh, this came off. Getting these, I don't know what you call them, but if you could see, they're like, I don't know, like they're screws, so you need to screw them in, but they're holding the backing board just enough so then they don't move around, which is great. But basically why I have these cloth fabrics right here is because they really dig into that backing board in the back. You can see right here that it's like slightly tearing. So it's not the best option. I came to realize that maybe this isn't the way to go about it, but it was like a quick option and I don't regret doing it because I didn't want glass. That was the whole purpose for this one. Like the glass somehow makes me feel like you're away from the painting. So I decided not to put glass. But eventually what led me to kind of explore more options and get more things was basically I got my drill, my own drill right here. I went to Home Depot and I got everything, all the wood that I needed to create cradle bore for 15 by 22 because that's like a very uncommon size. So that's up in the silent auction. It was a horse piece that I've created and it went well, but there were a lot of things that I learned throughout the process. It wasn't easy, but I think it'll pay off eventually and I'm probably gonna stick with this. But one thing leads to a next because in that learning phase with the screws, I ended up having like stripping the screws and I had to cut them off. So I had to get Demel or something. It's like engraving tool to cut off metal. I got myself that tool and it was just like, oh my God, it tumbled into different projects after different projects because there's always a learning curve, right? And we make mistakes. So anyways, my point is I'm still learning and I think I've nailed down to a cradled board is the best option for me because I just want it to have that thick canvas kind of look and I don't want glass. And that's why I tested out with a couple of varnishes and I think I've nailed down to using the golden satin archival varnish. That's what I like because it's waterproof. And putting that Dorland's wax on top of it, a lot of you mentioned about that. So that is still on the testing side and I'm still looking at how it performs, but I might even switch over to that if I like it. So thank you to all for that suggestion. And yeah, so basically I'm still searching for the best solution for me because every artist I think is different and we know now from the tests that I've done that climate really affects a lot of this as well. And obviously if you're selling within your state or wherever you live, you would want to accommodate to that because your clients are most likely going to be around you. Truth number 2 is what draws the eye is contrast, not just size. So let me explain what I mean by this. What I realized in this juried exhibition, I think I had like at least 9 last year that I submitted my work and I was a part of. And I realized that the large pieces usually have so much presence in the room. Like I'm naturally drawn to it because it just shouts like I'm here, right? But I think size is just the easiest way, not to say all the time that goes into hyper-realism painting, drawing of like large scale. I'm not saying to diminish that work, but I think that's probably the easiest way to attract people. But I realized there are other things that pull the eye. Those are saturation, value. If we go back to the elements of art or the principles, those are the things that you can use in order to create contrast. There is a watercolor specific challenge that we have as watercolorists. Subtlety gets lost faster than boldness because there was a realization for me. This was the work that I created, my son, and I really love. And I took this to the gallery that I am a part of for a back gallery show. And what I saw there was just like, oh my God, my work is so subtle. It's just a part of the characteristic of watercolor. Even if you go very high saturation and create so much contrast within the painting, when I saw my work next to another artist who used acrylic and very bold colors, so the key tension that I think I had was what attracts attention versus what feels true to me. So the takeaway for me right here is not to create like big works necessarily, but it was realizing that with watercolor, it needs intentional contrast to survive almost like real world conditions. And I think there are multiple ways to create that. So I'm planning to experiment and explore.
some different options. So truth number 3 is reconfirming that we have to listen internally rather than external reasons. So what I mean is, I'm going to go back to this example that I gave, but let's say for, non-staining color versus staining colors, I realized that there are way to go about it, but I like the staining first and non-staining first because I just love how granulating colors look when they are applied later, and often they are non-staining. And that's just what I love. But it doesn't quite grab people's attention as much as the saturated colors. I mean, look at these two. These are the colors that I love. But if you look this against this, then I think your eyes are more drawn to this one because it's high saturated colors, like they're staining colors. So this is like a key thing that I realized I can't create with external reasons. But it's not gonna, attract as much people's eyes. But you just have to do what you love. You have to just follow your spark. I knew it, but it was a realization that I had, that I kind of came across and I kind of thought about. So thought I shared that as well. So truth number 4, commissions need boundaries. So in my another video where I'm sharing the breakdown of my income and my expense for the next video, the commissions are a huge chunk of my income. It's like the top number 1. I love commissions. I have a contract where it outlines the rules. For me, a commission is a collaboration with the other person, obviously. And I want to create, as much as I want to create something together, I think it's very important that the commissioner loves the way that I do things as well. And I think what happened with one of the commissions is that there was an ongoing, is this okay? Oh, that's not okay. And, not to say that she was picky or anything. I love how this specific client had a vision and she wanted things in a very specific way. And I totally learned so much from her. But I was starting to question my skill. And I think that could be a quite degrading feeling for an artist because it was tumbling in the wrong direction sometimes. And I hear this critic in my head, and I'm sure that we're all fighting against this critic, right? And for me, I don't think it really comes to me as much. I just enjoy the process. But for some reason, I think because there was a ongoing, back and forth a lot, I just started questioning myself and my skills. So I think in reality, practicing this boundary could be quite hard, especially when there's different rules for different commissions. I have a full portrait custom commissioning, or there is an entry level vibrant watercolor portraits that are I don't do any sketches for that. But because this client was doing a lot of different commissions, there are different rules. So it was very difficult for me to split and say these are separate rules. So that was something to kind of think about.
I think the big realization that I had was, if you don't trust your decisions, why would they, right? So I think it's really healthy when there could be a clear boundary, but I think it's still difficult for me because if you lay out clear boundaries, then the client might not be happy. But at the same time, if you accept that they can come back at you to tell you, oh, can you adjust this or that, then it's as an artist, you just can't keep going. It's really hard. So I'm not quite sure. I would love to hear what you think about it. So truth number 5 is time painting still matters the most. So I was very, very lucky to be able to talk to Christian Hook last year in 2025 of May. He's one of the, I think it was 2013 or 2014. He won the Portrait Artist of the Year, and he is from Gibraltar, but I think he kind of lives in Gibraltar, but also maybe he has 2 homes, I don't know, but is also in the UK. And I love his work. Yeah, he's my true inspiration, and this is one of his work that I went to see in Edinburgh. I love it. I was very lucky enough to have a one-on-one conversation, although it was very short. I appreciate every bit of it. He questioned, what do you want to do? Like, are you an artist or are you a journalist? And it kind of struck me at the time because of many different reasons. But he has his point. Like, if you're an artist, just do art. It's one direction, one focus. Just build your craftsmanship and everything else doesn't matter. And I totally want to fully commit myself and agree to that. But what if you like doing other things too? And I came to realize that we're all very different. There are different paths to like getting to where you want to be. It struck me so much that I just cried after that call. But I was so thankful to him. And so I cut down on my podcast that I used to have. It went up to 50 episodes, but that's another story. But anyhow, I want to stick with that partly. I do enjoy sharing my experiments on this YouTube. There's a lot of time that goes into it, like editing and so forth, but I do love sharing, so I'm going to keep that going. But I am going to cut down on the time that goes to everything else other than painting, because ultimately whatever craft that you're working on, at least 50% needs to go into that. Hopefully 60, hopefully 100, although I think it's difficult. But that's what I came down to. And my takeaway is that I'm going to devote 60% of the hours that I have into painting. Simple as that. And everything rests on that. Painting is going to be non-negotiable. None of these lessons were dramatic per se, but together I think they changed how I worked. They changed how I finish a piece, how I go along the process of commissions, well, hopefully for 2026, and how I think about time, because ultimately time is limited. We all have the same equivalent time, and how long do we have of that time? And all of these realizations also changed how I would like to spend my money in 2026, because in 2025 I know what I invested in and what honestly surprised me, and what I want to rebalance moving forward into this new year. In my next video, I'm going to be sharing how I actually funded my art practice and how that's shaping my decisions for 2026.
Oh my God. I just got accepted to the Art of Portrait conference in Atlanta this year. Oh my God, I'm so happy. I got the scholarship. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Oh my God, I can make it. Oh, that's great. Okay, but anyways, so sorry about that.